My name is Germana Ravanelli. I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist, a mind-body healer, a personal trainer, a nutritional therapist. I was taught that health is harmonizing the body, the mind, and the spirit. Hello, my name is Germana Ravanelli. I want to thank you for opening up this video. Today's video is going to be on how to heal being boundaryless. And I'm not going to say it's a one and done. It's a daily process. And boundaryless is a condition that comes from, not knowing how to protect ourselves, not knowing how to speak up for ourselves, not knowing how to recognize that we have needs. What it usually comes from is some form of an abandonment pattern that we were taught as children. Maybe we had parents that didn't see that we had needs, or see that we were hungry, or see that we were scared, or see that we needed a hug. Then the child, naturally, to protect itself, just does whatever it can do to think it's in control of the situation by tending to the storms in the home. And then that becomes a caregiver child, which doesn't have any childhood left. And so they often end up as someone who overgives or people pleases, absorbing others' emotions or problems, otherwise can be called an empath. If you're an empath, you have a skill, but you also need to be capable of bringing that empathy back to yourself first. Otherwise, you will burn out. Feeling responsible for how others feel or act is a sign of being boundaryless. And again, that is a tendency of self-abandonment. Struggling with self-identity or self-worth, meaning my identity or my self-worth is based on how you see me, which is a complete and utter disastrous lie, because people see what they want to see, and they will project their unresolved issues. Either they love you or they hate you based on whatever their own personal state is. And so you need to understand that how someone sees you has nothing to do with you. Zero. Being easily manipulated or taken advantage of, which then just creates a lifetime of trauma. So how does a person learn, how to break some of these trances? They are subconsciously programmed in. I am a clinical hypnotherapist. And so it's important to understand that how our subconscious is wired. It starts from conception, which people go, oh my God, is that true? It is true. And it usually the programming ends at about 8 years old. So the part of us that's saying good, bad, right, wrong, I can succeed, I cannot succeed, I'm safe, I'm not safe, is somewhere between a very young version and an 8-year-old. And that's the part of us that's making the decisions for our life. And that's the part of us that then hasn't been taught how to take care of our true, authentic self, because there's a lot of fear loaded into that timeline for some people. So I'm just going to talk about, if you're exhausted, if you're tired, if you have problems with relationships, if you have a problem with addiction, a problem with taking care of your physical body, a problem with your finances, a problem with feeling safe, you are probably boundaryless, which means you have not learned how to show up for yourself and be loving to yourself. If you put other people ahead of yourself, which is a form of slow suicide, because it's not sustainable, and eventually you just get sick. Dr. Gabor Mate says, when the body says no, well, that person's been violating themselves forever, and eventually they have some bizarre illness, and it's often linked to being traumatized or abused. And neglect is a form of abandonment. And sometimes our parents couldn't be there for us. So we make up this belief, I'm bad, no one likes me, I must do these things so they will like me. And then we do that for our whole life unless we break that pattern. So how do we heal, overcome being boundaryless, not having a sense of self, reconnect with our own needs and emotions? So we want to be more focused on our own needs and know that this is going to sound strange. If you're actually taking care of yourself and you feel a little bit guilty, perhaps, maybe a tiny bit, thinking you're selfish, you're doing the right thing. So that means, you come first. What does my physical body need or want to be healthy? What are my financial realities? How do I have a boundary with myself so I don't overspend? We live in a society of everything's instant gratification, boom, boom, boom. And I shake my head because a lot of people that sit there and they go, I'm broke, I'm broke. They're drinking a Starbucks coffee, $5 or $6 per. And I'm like, whoa. And one really powerful thing to ask yourself, whatever behavior you might go, maybe I'm not really taking care of myself. Maybe I'm just into the comfort. You ask yourself, what's the cost of keeping this behavior? What if I do this for another 5 years? And people, they look and I'm like, well, it's not going to change unless you make a decision. So learning how to practice daily check-ins, like, is this good for me, big picture, long term? Asking yourself, I often place my hand on my chest or my belly because I can get really in my head, thinking, not healthy. What am I feeling? What do I need right now? That's a really great pattern interrupt because most of us the eyeballs are looking out. So we're looking at the outside world instead of looking in. What do I need? What am I feeling? Excuse me. Keeping a journal is excellent. Writing down on a scale of 0 to 10, how do I feel physically? Am I an 8? Am I a 9 or am I a 4? Say 10's amazing. How do I feel spiritually? And I really believe that people that are happy have a spiritual practice because otherwise it's just a very kind of a weird life. There's an old saying that, please don't get mad at me. I believe in a loving, caring God. But there's an old saying that spirituality is for people who have been to hell, and religion is for people who are afraid to go to hell. And how we live here on this earth and how we think and feel creates a heavenly life or a very, very painful life. Knowing how to take care of ourselves without feeling guilty for actually having a need is how we break the trance of suffering. And I call it breadcrumbing ourselves, just giving ourselves a tiny bit, whatever's left. Have you ever been in a relationship where you've been breadcrumbed? You feel like they give you just enough to keep you around? We do that to ourselves sometimes. So keeping a journal, today's I'm happy. What are 3 things I could do to create, a wonderful day? And then you just do that. That's you taking care of you. And also learning to check your body. What does my body feel? Do I have a tight chest? Do I have a clenched jaw? Do I have a headache? Do I have body pain? Those are all signs that you've been violating a boundary of your own needs because you've not been taught. And so this channel is all about learning. And so whenever you notice something going on in your body, your subconscious is communicating because your body and your subconscious is exactly the same thing. One of the things that I think is excellent, and there's a lot of things I could share, but your mind, my mind, our mind is not who we are. It's a piece of our equipment. I call the body the meat suit, and this is the computer. But a lot of people live there, and the mind will come up with all sorts of ideas and thoughts. If I do this, I'll be good. If I do this, I'll be bad. If I don't do this, something bad will happen. Having a boundary with your own mind to say, is this true? Can I prove with 100% accuracy that this is true? Can I actually demonstrate that it's true? That's one way of popping that bubble, because I would say 90+% of what our brain tells us that's wrong or that we need to fix is not true. So being able to sit and just watch that the mind will constantly, it will. If you're triggered, your mind will start to pop all sorts of things up. And you just sit in your skin and go, oh, the mind's bubbling. And then you go into your heart and ask your heart, can I keep my heart open? Which is another way of just simply feeling safe. The mind will create problems out of nothing. The toilet paper roll being empty can become another thing to beat yourself up over, which is really quite sad. That's just an example of something I've witnessed. So somatic tools are listening to your body. If you have a headache, something's going on. Maybe you need water. Maybe you need a hug. Maybe you need someone to tell you you're doing a good job. Maybe you need to hear that, you're really proud of yourself. Most people have not been taught how to be kind to themselves. They're in some sort of a strange bargaining exchange that if we do all these things for other people, somehow our life will work. And I will ask you to find 10 people that are like that, and then ask yourself if you want to be like that, because it hurts. And usually the only thing that makes it stop is sick. Person gets sick. Learning how to do inner child work is critical, because that's the part that we need to kind of rescue. How can I love you? How can I show up for you? And those are so simple. But a lot of people have resistance because that's the part of us that's vulnerable. That's the part of us that often carries shame and guilt. And I remember once saying something to my mother after she was very angry as I took her to court. I said, nobody protected me as a little girl, and no one spoke up for me, and no one cared about me. But now I'm showing up for that part of me that was abandoned and betrayed by you. And she didn't know what to say, and we didn't talk for years. But I just thought to myself, I'm worth loving, and I'm worth rescuing, and I'm worth saving. And I know I'm not alone. We all are. Part of it is having the desire to feel better, to have a good life. I'm going to end this video now, and I'm going to put another one in behind it with a few more tools about how do we heal the trance of not having boundaries with ourselves and others.